Hello everyone, my name is Justin Sargent. I'm the President of Nielsen China. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. I'm based here in Shanghai. I'm back in the office, as you may be able to see. We've been back in the office the last few weeks, so I know many people watching this video will be at home. Hopefully this is a bit of inspiration as well that lockdown does end, normality will resume. So I thought I could just spend a few minutes today just talking about the experience in China and what we've noticed from a consumer behavior perspective and what's happened in the market, just to give everyone a bit of an indication on what might be coming in other markets as well. So by way of background, the virus appeared in China, as many of you will know, towards the end of January. It actually appeared around Chinese New Year, which is a major holiday in China. Normally there's about 3 billion trips made over that period. But very quickly, the number of infections rose, particularly in Wuhan, which is in Hubei province. And so we saw a very fast lockdown of Wuhan, which very quickly spread across the rest of China. So you'll have heard about the various stages that consumers go through with regard to COVID-19. Nielsen has a 6-stage framework. The first 3 stages are all about getting prepared around health management and stocking up. What was interesting in China was the first 3 stages didn't happen because of the suddenness of the lockdown. We didn't see the level of panic buying, pantry stocking that you've seen in many other countries. We did see some consumers stock up a little bit, particularly before Chinese New Year, in areas such as hand sanitizers and face masks. And we also saw some of the baby products in particular spike. But generally speaking, consumers were pretty calm, I think, compared to some of the purchasing behaviors that we're seeing in the rest of the world. What we did see straight away, though, was a severe impact on what was happening with retailers. So a lot of supply chain disruption happened. If you look at the month of February, for example, 57% of grocery stores were closed for the whole of the month. Some retailers, particularly the bigger retailers, the hypermarkets, remained open because they had good supply chains, they had plenty of staff. And actually, a lot of consumers went to the big hypermarkets because it was a bigger, safer shopping environment. But certainly a lot of the smaller stores really struggled. Of course, a lot of consumers shifted online into e-commerce and other channels. And it's interesting when you talk to retailers now, they reflect a lot on what happened. And unsurprisingly, a lot of them are saying that in the future, they're going to work a lot harder on those supply chains. They're also going to get more digital, create new e-commerce and online channels, and they're also going to shift more of their assortment in the area of health and wellness. So we saw a lot of supply chain disruption. And then of course we also saw this brand new economy. We call it the homebody economy, which is with everyone at home. It's a very different way of life. So in China, for example, we had about 85% of people were learning, online learning. We had about similar number cooking. Many young Chinese who traditionally would eat out, now started cooking for the first time. Of course, we had this massive explosion in social, 66% of people were using live video. So we saw this massive homebody economy, as we would call it. And we actually think a lot of those trends, particularly as it relates to cooking, for example, and some of the learning and entertainment, we see those sorts of trends, will continue, even in a post-COVID-19 phase. Now, if we look at the market, and maybe I'll use consumer packaged goods as a frame of reference, the way we tend to look at it is we tend to look at it over January and February, because if you just compare February over February or January over January, it gets a bit confusing because you had Chinese New Year in different months in the last 2 years. So if you look at January, February combined, then consumer packaged goods sales actually still grew about 3%, just over about 3.5%. There were different channels that reacted in different ways. So offline brick and mortar did decline by about 4% over that period. E-commerce grew by 29%. And then there were new channels such as online to offline, which is consumers using delivery apps from stores. They grew by over 40%. So we saw some quite big channel shifts. But of course, in that average 3% growth, there were winners and losers. If you look at it from a branded manufacturing perspective, people were cooking and cleaning. Those are the big things they were doing at home. So you saw a lot of the cooking categories. So for example, frozen dim sum, grew at well over 30%, instant noodles grew at well over 20%. You could see antiseptic liquids grew at a massive 350%. So you had some categories grew dramatically, and then you also had some categories that really went the other way, particularly the impulse and gifting areas. In China, didn't do so well, and also personal care, because people weren't going out as much. So for example, we saw biscuits decline by over 20%. We saw facial masks decline by a similar sort of number. So even though there was 3% overall, there were huge ups and downs. So different manufacturers feel differently about this phase. The interesting thing is consumers' confidence is starting to come back. We did a survey at the end of February, and actually 92% of them felt confident that the government was going to get this sorted. And touch wood, it looks like it's getting to that sort of position. So we do think that confidence is hopefully going to augur well for a rebound. And if you look at what some of the authorities are saying here, they're talking a lot about technology investment as the next stage to enable the rebound. And that's pretty smart because, again, when consumers were at home, they were engaging in technology. They were learning new things. 93% of consumers, for example, are saying they would like to purchase a 5G phone. We had about 66% of consumers getting interested in AR and VR, which obviously is going to revolutionize shopping behavior in some particular areas. So we're now starting to approach the new normal phase. We think a lot of the challenge for brands is how do you help consumers overcome their fears? For example, only 40% of Chinese consumers are saying they're going to use public transport as much as they used to. Only about 14% are saying that they're going to travel as much. So there's a lot of work to be done, I think, by brands to build trust and overcome fears. But that journey has begun. And we did a survey of 20 CEOs in the industry last week, and we were encouraged that most of those CEOs actually felt quite optimistic. But their big messages were, they've learned to become more agile. Going forward, it's about cash flow, unsurprisingly. It's about getting more digital, and it's about really rethinking their innovation strategies to take advantage of the new normal. So we will keep tracking this journey, but hopefully those insights will be helpful to you as you think about how you lead your organizations through COVID-19. So thank you for spending the time today, and stay safe, everyone.